Good morning or good afternoon to everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. We still have a few people logging in, so we're going to give them a minute or two and then we'll be underway. I think we're ready to go. Thank you all for joining us for today's Nature Talks, Celebrating Special Places. My name is Amanda Cornby Bennett, and I am the Senior Development Officer for the Atlantic Region with Nature Conservancy of Canada. I will be your moderator today. We would like to begin by acknowledging that Newfoundland, the place in which we are presenting from today, is the ancestral homelands of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. I'd also like to recognize the Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Anatuvut and the Innu of Desin and their ancestors as the original people from Labrador. We acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Innu, Inuit, Métis, and the other Indigenous peoples of the province. We honor and thank the original stewards and inhabitants of Newfoundland and Labrador, and we recognize the continuous presence of the Indigenous people here and all across Canada today. The Nature Conservancy of Canada is a national charity and Canada's leading non-for-profit private land conservation organization, working to protect the most important natural areas of the species they sustain. Since 1962, NCC and its partners have helped protect 14 million hectares, 35 million acres, coast to coast to coast. To learn more, visit our website, natureconservancy.ca. Just before the presentation begins, I'd like to quickly cover a few housekeeping topics. As we're being joined from people all across the country, you may experience a temporary glitch during the live stream. We thank you in advance for your patience. Today's webinar is being recorded. We will be sharing the link of the recording after the event, so keep an eye out on your inboxes. We welcome you to revisit the content yourself or share with your colleagues, friends, and family. We want you to join in on the conversation and share your thoughts online. Feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram using the hashtag NCC Nature Talks during and afterwards. We invite you to also add comments or questions. You'll notice a Q&A chat box on your screen. If you think of any questions at any time for our speakers, just type a quick question there, include who you would like it to go to, and we will answer it after the presentation. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, helping us to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Freshwater Bay Nature Reserve. Creating this new nature reserve inside city limits, just footsteps from downtown beautiful St. John's, is an outstanding success that we have all achieved together. Thank you. As we are celebrating this achievement together, we would be remiss to not celebrate some of the other nature reserves in Newfoundland, and of course the communities that we are now a part of. We will be joined today by Megan Lafferty, Program Director, and Julia Lawler, Stewardship Coordinator. I'd like to tell you a little more about my two colleagues I have the privilege of working with. Megan Lafferty has been with NCC since 2013. As the Program Director, she leads the planning and execution of the conservation activities in the province. Born and raised in Hamilton, Ontario, Megan holds an Honours of Bachelor's of Science degree from the University of Toronto and a Master's of Environmental Science from Memorial. Julia joined NCC in 2017. She enjoys how diverse her role is as a stewardship coordinator, from carrying out species inventories in the field or writing property management plans and community outreach. Originally from Southern Ontario, she has a Bachelor's of Environmental Studies degree from the University of Waterloo and a Master's of Bioscience, Technology, and Public Policy from the University of Winnipeg. With these amazing at the helm, I will leave you in their good hands. The floor is yours, Megan and Julia.
Thanks so much, Amanda. Hi, everyone. As Amanda mentioned, my name is Megan Lafferty, and I'm the Newfoundland and Labrador Program Director for the Nature Conservancy of Canada. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today to celebrate the one-year anniversary of our Freshwater Bay Nature Reserve. We're really excited to tell you a bit more about what we do here in Newfoundland and Labrador, share the story of our new nature reserve, and also update you on some of the other recent work that's taken place across the island of Newfoundland. So the Newfoundland and Labrador Office for the Nature Conservancy of Canada is a two-person team that expands to 3 over the summer with a conservation intern who helps us accomplish all of our field work. And Julie and I actually both started our careers with NCC as conservation interns. I've been with the organization since 2013, and my role as program director focuses on land securement and partnerships. I'm a Newfoundlander by choice, but I couldn't be happier to be working with the Nature Conservancy of Canada and all of our conservation partners across the province to conserve the beautiful and rugged landscapes that I now call home.
Thanks, Megan. And my name's Julia Lawler. As mentioned, I'm the Newfoundland and Labrador Stewardship Coordinator. I joined the team 3.5 years ago as a conservation intern. My current role focuses on managing NCC's nature reserves. I've loved the opportunity to explore this province through my role with NCC. But one of the highlights for me is the amazing people we get to work with, especially our volunteers who inspire us every day. So now that we've taken a moment to tell you a bit more about Megan and I'd love to take this opportunity to share with you more about our work here in Newfoundland and Labrador. The Nature Conservancy of Canada has been active in this province since 1996. During this time, we've helped protect over 5,200 hectares across the island. Some of the special places we've helped protect include internationally important wetlands in the Codroy Valley, areas of dramatic coastline along the Avalon Peninsula, and several Atlantic salmon rivers, including the Salmonier River here on the Avalon Peninsula, and the Crabs and Robinsons Rivers in southwest Newfoundland. This province has vast natural spaces and unique landscapes that have fewer historical impacts than other areas in Canada. We like to say that in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have the opportunity to protect the best of the best rather than the best of what's left.
So here's a map showing our nature reserves in Newfoundland and Labrador, and you'll notice that this map focuses on the island of Newfoundland. We have done some conservation work in Labrador to support land use planning in the past, and though we're not establishing nature reserves there, we are always open to exploring new partnerships to support conservation in Labrador. You can also see that our 11 project areas are clustered in 2 places, southwest Newfoundland, where the Corner Brook is located on the left side of the map, and also the Avalon Peninsula, where St. John's is located. These are areas where we've historically focused our efforts, working with many partners, interest groups, governments, and municipalities to take a comprehensive approach to planning our conservation actions and priorities in these areas. In southwest Newfoundland, there's beautiful boreal forests, some limestone barrens, fresh and saltwater wetlands, and sandy beaches and dunes, which are uncommon in our province. On the Avalon Peninsula, there's over 2,000 kilometers of dramatic coastline, much of which supports fascinating seabird colonies. It also has unique wetlands and forest that supports globally rare lichen species. And so, as many of you know, our most recent project on the Avalon Peninsula is Freshwater Bay. Freshwater Bay was a multi-year initiative that wrapped up last fall, and the land had been owned by the Crosby family since the 1950s. Rob Crosby, shown here on this slide, is a faithful community supporter, and he's a member of our regional board of directors. In 2017, he approached the Nature Conservancy of Canada and asked if we would be interested in their family donating the land for permanent conservation. We were thrilled to be able to add Freshwater Bay to our collection of nature reserves here in the province. It's a large piece of private land in close proximity to St. John's. It's got beautiful coastal forest and wetlands, and nearby at Spriggs Point, there are also seabird colonies. It's also a well-loved hiking destination along the East Coast Trail. I'd like to take just a moment to share a bit more about the East Coast Trail. It's a 336-kilometer long wilderness hiking trail that connects historic communities along the Avalon Peninsula, as you can see in the map. As of 2017, the East Coast Trail is actually part of the Trans-Canada Trail, and houses the section dedicated as Kilometer Zero. In 2012, National Geographic named the East Coast Trail as one of the 10 best adventure destinations in the world, and Julia and I certainly agree, spending a lot of our personal time hiking that trail. The East Coast Trail Association, who manages the trail, has to maintain agreements for all public and private land that their trail crosses. So they've shared with us that they're grateful when NCC owns land along the trail because they know the trail will continue to be allowed to pass through for the long term. In turn, we are really proud to contribute to keeping the landscapes along the trail in their natural state for locals and visitors alike to enjoy. Freshwater Bay is actually our second property along the East Coast Trail, and the first was Maddox Cove. The access opportunities provided by the East Coast Trail were actually a big factor in why we decided to establish our Maddox Cove Nature Reserve, with the East Coast Trail passing right through it. While many of our nature reserves in the province have beautiful natural features and are impressive to visit, they can often be a bit challenging and remote to access. But here, this partnership with the East Coast Trail Association allows us to bring people to our nature reserves in a way that otherwise wouldn't be possible. And so you can see some of the partnership opportunities on this slide. The first, you'll see me wearing the Google Trekker backpack. And this was a partnership with Google where we mapped some sections of trails so you can actually hike them virtually from your computer. And in the smaller image, you'll see two students from Memorial University in a conservation biology class. Through a partnership with them, they were able to do some fieldwork as one of the lab components of their course. And so these kinds of opportunities were just one of the many ways why we're so excited about Freshwater Bay.
Yeah, so as Megan mentioned, not only is Freshwater Bay close to downtown St. John's, but it's been a popular hiking spot for generations. It's called Freshwater Bay because of the large freshwater pond separated from the Atlantic Ocean by a rocky barrageway. You can see this in the upper right-hand photo. The Atlantic Ocean with the waves is on the left, and then there's the rocky barrageway in the middle, and the freshwater pond is on the right. Although only a small section of the East Coast Trail passes through our nature reserve, we're excited that its location ensures that the land surrounding the trail is kept in a natural state forever. Hiking along the trail, you'll see species like balsam fir, black spruce, white spruce, tamarack, Labrador tea, and a variety of lichens and fungi. You'll also see the remains of an Arctic explorer ship, the SS Thetis. So if you look at that photo again of the barrageway, you can see some chunks of rusty metal along the rocky area. Those are what remains of the SS Thetis. That ship was active and went on many Arctic adventures between 1881 and 1936. If you continue to follow the trail, you'll come across Spriggs Point, which is a nesting place for many seabirds, including black guillemots, which are located there, the birds pictured in the bottom right-hand corner. So since acquiring Freshwater Bay, we've carried out several conservation actions, including collaborating with the East Coast Trail Association field team, doing things like trail maintenance and garbage removal. We've also installed signage on the property so that people visiting know where the nature reserve is located. And we've completed a baseline inventory and a property management plan. These documents involve ecosystem mapping and species inventories, which help inform our work in the area. However, those activities are only just the beginning, and we're excited about possibilities for the future. So in this picture on the screen, those are photos from our 2019 Volunteer BioBlitz. So we had over 20 local volunteers come out and help us survey all the different species on the Freshwater Bay property. So we had one group that helped us track mammals. They put up trail cameras, which is how we were able to get that photo of a moose there. We also had volunteers go out and survey for vegetation species, birds, and lichens. We're really looking forward to having other volunteer events like this that get people out on the nature reserve in the future. We're also excited to meet with nearby communities of Shea Heights and Blackhead who live located just up the road from Freshwater Bay. We're excited to speak to them about their connection and history with Freshwater Bay and see if we can gain any insights of what they'd like to see happen on the nature reserve. Finally, because Freshwater Bay is located so close to St. John's, there's all kinds of collaboration and education communities that we can work with, the Memorial University as well as other schools located in St. John's. All of these actions that we take on our nature reserves are possible because of our donors. When we secure a property, we fundraise for its long-term care upfront to make sure that we can always be responsible landowners. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much. We could not do this work without you.
Thanks, Julia. So now that we've shared the story of Freshwater Bay and our plans for its next chapter, we'd love to tell you a bit more about some of the other NCC projects across the province. Freshwater Bay isn't the only nature reserve that has been donated to the Nature Conservancy of Canada in recent years. In 2018, we were able to establish our Barashwa Brook Nature Reserve thanks to a donation from the Carter brothers, who you can see on this slide. They'd received the land from their father, Fred Carter, who received it as a christening gift in 1927, and they were so pleased to be able to donate it in his memory. The 79-hectare property borders Barashwa Pond Provincial Park, which is in southwest Newfoundland, about an hour from Corner Brook. By protecting this land adjacent to the provincial park, we've effectively expanded the conservation impact on the landscape. The land also surrounds just over 2 kilometers of Barashwa Brook, which you can see in this picture, and that's a scheduled Atlantic salmon river. It also contains wetlands and boreal forest, which provides habitat for the threatened Newfoundland martin. But we don't only focus on securing properties, we're also involved in other conservation initiatives across the province, including things like research partnerships. So to give an example of that, from 2015 to 2017, the Nature Conservancy of Canada worked with our provincial conservation partners to collect wetland field data and support wetland modeling research being conducted out of Memorial University. This January, we are excited that the first generation of a Canadian wetland inventory map at a spatial resolution of 10 meters was published using the modeling that was developed with this data. And so you can see the map here on this slide. You'll see many different types of land classifications, including wetlands like bogs, fens, marshes, and swamps. If anyone is interested in seeing the publication associated with this work, please do get in touch and we'd be happy to share that information. In connection with that fieldwork, we also collected data to help calibrate a protocol for assessing wetland ecosystem services in this province. And when I talk about ecosystem services of wetlands, these are things like water filtration or water retention to help prevent floods. Both of these were great improvements to our knowledge of wetlands across the country, but especially here in Newfoundland and Labrador, where we previously had very little spatial information on our wetlands. And information like this really helps inform our conservation work, things like where we establish our nature reserve and how best to steward them. And so in this photo here, you'll see me measuring the salinity of one of the wetland pools to feed into that calibration work. One important wetland that we've been able to learn more about through this research is an area where we've worked for over 20 years, and that's the Grand Codroy Estuary.
Yeah, so as Megan mentioned, the Grand Codroy Estuary is a very special place. It's sheltered by the Long Range Mountains in southwestern Newfoundland, where the landscape opens up to a scenic valley that follows the Grand Codroy River to the ocean. The Codroy is the only Ramsar-designated wetland of international importance in the province, and it also has 2 internationally recognized important bird areas. Over 100 species of birds have been identified in the Codroy Valley, including songbirds, shorebirds, and waterfowl. For this reason, the Nature Conservancy of Canada is not the only organization involved in the Codroy Valley. This area demonstrates how and why collaboration with conservation and community groups plays an important role in our work. In the Codroy, there's a very active community group, the Codroy Valley Area Development Association, who maintain a wetland interpretation center, among other initiatives. There's also a provincial park where the endangered piping plover are known to nest. Intervale Associates is a conservation organization who've spearheaded piping plover monitoring in the area. And Ducks Unlimited Canada also owns some land in the Codroy. The province is also actively involved in the management of these areas as it's a Ramsar site, and all of these groups work together to achieve the best conservation outcomes. We're proud to work among these inspiring partners and take part in working toward common goals for the long-term conservation and stewardship of the Codroy Valley. So now that Megan and I have described research and collaboration components of our work, we wanted to take some time to share with you an example of our outreach and engagement initiatives. We really feel that it's important to be actively engaged in the communities where we work and offer ways to inspire local youth to get to know and love the special nature areas where they live. We've been visiting and conducting outreach at the local school in the Codroy Valley, Bellinger Memorial, since 2014. Each year, we see between 70 and 90 students from kindergarten to grade 6. We take the students out along the wetland trails, we get them out into nature, and for younger students, we encourage them to be scientists by listening, looking, smelling, and touching as they explore nature and participate in ecology games. For the older students, they learn about invasive species and basic species identification skills, so that when they go out in these areas on their own, they feel more familiar with what they're looking at. All students learn about the importance of wetlands, what an estuary is, and how special the Codroy Valley is. Finding opportunities to get out and explore natural areas and nature reserves is what drives our outreach and engagement efforts.
And so another way to try and help people get out and explore our natural areas is nature destinations. And because the Codroy Valley is so special, as Julia outlined, it was chosen as one of NCC's nature destinations here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So this is a nationwide initiative really designed to help get people out, give people the information they need to explore our nature reserves. We have a website, naturedestinations.ca, and that provides helpful information with things like how to access our properties, the trail types and difficulties, and things you might see while you're there, including species. For example, in the Codroy Valley, there is a trail that passes through a portion of our nature reserves, and you can see it small there in maroon. And this is built and maintained by the Codroy Valley Area Development Association, which is the active community group that Julia mentioned earlier. We continue to expand our nature destinations across the country, and we really hope to be able to add Freshwater Bay to that collection of projects. For the most part, our trails continue to be open during the pandemic. And I just want to acknowledge that, we're meeting virtually today because of the current global situation, but we really look forward to be able to host in-person events with you again in the future. And so with that, I just want to thank you again so much for sharing your time with us today to help celebrate Freshwater Bay and learn more about some of the other special places where we work in Newfoundland and Labrador. And Julie and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Megan and Julia. We appreciate you providing some insights of not only the Freshwater Bay Nature Reserve that we have, but all the different partnerships and science and techniques that we have been able to use in going through. I found it quite interesting, anywhere from Google trackers to checking water. That's amazing work. It looks like that we are starting to have several questions coming in for our speakers. There's still plenty of time to submit if you do have anything. So just as a reminder, we do have a Q&A chat box that you can go on in and submit. We will go through them as much as we can while time allows. If we don't get an opportunity, we will sure be able to answer them afterwards and get back to you with those. So I'm looking here at some great questions that we have. The first one is coming in. I think I can go to either Julia or Megan. As a part of the information that you collected regarding Freshwater Bay, do you have some historical information on the properties, such as ownership of properties prior to the Crosby family or prior to use of the road that went through the community of Freshwater Bay, etc., or the history of it?
Sure. So I can answer this one. We do. Any information that exists that's about historical uses or context for our nature reserves, we're always happy to have. I think, as we establish these properties to be for conservation, but also for people to use, it's really important to recognize and know how they historically were used and how that ties in with people still living in the communities and in the area. And there are some great resources I know that we're hoping to reach out to. As Julia mentioned, we'd love to speak with the communities of Shea Heights and Blackhead and learn as much as we can about the area, both for our own information, but also so we can share that information with people when they want to learn more about our nature reserves.
Excellent. Juliet, you were talking a little bit about how beautiful the Grand Codroy Valley is and that it's a very special spot. We have a question in here about what kind of bird species have been observed in that area, since it is quite considered a birding hotspot that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So the diversity of birds found here is unrivaled in the rest of the province. Just a few of the species that have been recorded there are the American bittern, American black duck, blue-winged teal, great blue heron, greater yellowlegs, northern pintails, wood duck, and red-winged blackbird, just to name a few different species.
Excellent. Now, maybe this is part of, because of the global pandemic that we are currently having, but we have an interesting question that's coming on in. It says, will we be doing some more events like this? Perhaps where it will even have opportunities to taking adults on tours virtually. Perhaps maybe that spurred the questions as well with that Google tracker there, Megan.
Yeah, so these events are things that the Nature Conservancy of Canada is doing more of across the country as we adapt our work in response to the pandemic. And while it has been, different for us to work in this way, it has been a really cool opportunity to connect with more people across the country. And I think we'll continue to see events like this, and we keep learning more about them the more that we run. And the suggestion to maybe take people on a virtual hike, perhaps we could do that. I think we will continue to develop these initiatives based on what people want. So I believe an event survey will go out after this event as well, and we really welcome your feedback as we continue to refine these. Certainly for us, it's been a different year to not be able to get out and see our volunteers and interact and really be with the community that we've become so well known, so close with over the years. And so any ways that we can really still connect with people, I think we're keen to explore.
Now, for those who are close to Freshwater Bay or within those traveling distances, I have an all-important question. How long does it take to actually hike Freshwater Bay? Not just going through the East Coast Trail, but in that exact area.
Sure. So the most direct way to access Freshwater Bay is from the parking lot along Blackhead Road, which will take you right down to the Freshwater Bay Barishwa area. So that's about a 2-kilometer rugged hike down. So depending on your comfort level and the pace you like to hike at, it can take anywhere from about 40 minutes to just over an hour to hike down there. And then coming back up may take you just a little bit longer because you're heading more uphill in that direction. Freshwater Bay is also part of a longer trail, a longer section of the East Coast Trail known as Deadman's Bay Path that goes between Fort Amherst and the community of Blackhead. I believe that trail, Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's about just over 10 kilometers to hike and can take approximately 6 to 8 hours to through hike it. That's a bit more of a challenging terrain to hike the whole thing, but both are very beautiful and enjoyable.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, I do have a question here. We were talking a lot about our different opportunities within Newfoundland. Is there any potential projects that we may be looking into in Labrador or expanding? Perhaps, Megan, this may be one that you may be able to assist with.
For sure. So, as I mentioned, Labrador is an area where we're always open to learning about new opportunities for conservation partnerships. It's a bit different than much the rest of the country, where we've had our approach of working with private land and private land ownership. Labrador there's a lot of public land. There's multiple Indigenous groups in the area who, of course, have been taking care of the landscape for millennia. So we really are just looking at a different approach in Labrador as much as possible. We're certainly keen to help advance conservation wherever there's a role for us to play. We also recognize that our traditional approach perhaps isn't the best fit for a place like Labrador, but always keen to hear about initiatives that are happening and take part where we can help.
Thank you. We have another one here. It says, what are some challenges with conservation areas so close to an urban center? I know today we're celebrating Freshwater Bay being footsteps within city limits, but they're also asking too, it's a two-parter. So what is the conservation challenges that are associated, but also what are some of the ways to limit ecosystem degradation with the potential of so many visitors coming to the area?
Sure, so that's a really great question, and it makes a lot of sense to wonder that. That is one of the things that as stewardship coordinator I focus on because we're always looking for ways to maintain our nature reserves in the best condition that we can. So some challenges associated with having a conservation area so close to an urban center, which, as you indicate, when there's lots of people, there can be lots of traffic, foot traffic or ATV traffic, depending on the location. Sometimes associated with that, there can be litter, there can be fire pits constructed, which can be hazardous to the forest if if the fires aren't taken care of properly. Different things like that. Sometimes cutting on the nature reserve, cutting wood can also be a concern. So for the most part, as you kind of indicate by your question, whenever there's more people visiting an area, sometimes there's more issues associated with that. However, generally we tend to be really lucky people visiting these natural areas are visiting them because they love them and they think they're beautiful and they love experiencing nature. So usually, although those are concerns, they're not huge issues that we face all the time. People are really respectful. They like to pack up where all their litter wherever they've been hiking or camping. People tend to be pretty fire safe. So that's one of the things that we check on when we do our annual monitoring of the property is we go through and we keep our eye out for any concerns like that. Often it can be addressed with just more signage, sometimes a strategically placed garbage can, things like that. But for the most part, the benefits of having natural areas located close to urban areas really outweigh some of those risks because people have more access to them and are able to get in and enjoy them.
Wonderful. I have a question coming in, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to how we can address this one during COVID times, but we have individuals who are looking to find out how they can get involved locally. I think that's kind of an exciting thing that one want to be involved with this, but I know what their challenges with this year, but is there some opportunities that people can be involved locally?
Yeah, absolutely. And the best way to get involved locally would be to get in touch. I see that Robin has put up the events at natureconservancy.ca email. And so if you reach out, then I know that your question will get directed our way. But really, opportunities to get involved locally vary with season, depending on the work that we're doing. One of the best ways to get involved is through our Conservation Volunteers program, where we run events on the properties that we own to kind of help us accomplish meaningful tasks that we wouldn't be able to do on our own. And an example of that is the Sandy Point Beach cleanup, which we've had for 7 years now and removed, several thousand pounds of garbage from this beautiful sandy island, which wouldn't have been possible without our volunteers. We also do have volunteer property stewards who help us, take care of the property and give us feedback and be our eyes on the ground when we can't be on our nature reserves. As you know, Newfoundland and Labrador is a big province, so we really benefit from the input of our property stewards. And it really varies depending on people's expertise and their interest in what they'd like to share. So really get in touch with us is the best way, and then we'd love to chat with you about your interests and where you think we might be able to work together.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for questions today. If we didn't get to your question, or there's something else that you would like to ask our panelists, we can certainly reach out with us with the nature events at natureconservancy.ca, and we'll be gladly to pass them on. I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this Nature Talks, having this opportunity to celebrate. Megan and Julia, thank you so much for leading the charge and being that amazing dynamic duo that we have currently in Newfoundland and Labrador. It is absolutely amazing the amount of work that you're able to do. But I can't say thank you enough either to all of those who support our work through contributing to our efforts, our donors, our supporters, our volunteers. Without you, we would not be able to make this possible. And for those that want to continue on supporting, you can contribute to the conservation and stewardship efforts by making a gift and supporting Nature Conservancy's work at Newfoundland and Labrador. You can have a quick picture on your phone with this QR code, or you can log on online at natureconservancy.ca/donate, and you can direct your contribution and gifts to Newfoundland and Labrador. I just want to thank again everybody for coming here, and for updates for our future webinars and events in your area, check out our events page at natureconservancy.ca/events. And remember, stay tuned for the links of today's webinars and recording. You should be receiving this in your email in the next 24 hours, and please feel free to share. On behalf of Nature Conservancy of Canada, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we hope to see you next time. Take care.